Hi, good morning, welcome back. Now today on the Heritage Softail, I'd like to deal with this nonsense. Now if you're anything like me, I like my gear linkages to be nice and snug, so you feel like you're directly in contact with the transmission and the gear shift movement is nice and direct. But this, rattling around like that, not only is that vague and a bit woolly, it also rattles when you're cruising along. And if we take a close look at the linkage, the way it works, we can actually pinpoint immediately exactly where the problem is. Right, if we take a close look at the complete linkage system here, we've got 3 points of contact. We've got a shaft going through a heavyweight bracket, a little swivel joint here at the front of the rod, and an identical swivel joint here at the back of the rod. And between the three of them, there is play in them somewhere. Right, take a look at the real one first. No up and down play, and there's no fore and aft play. It does move around a little bit, perhaps lacking a tiny bit of grease. We can deal with that, but there's no actual rattling around. And the front one, hold the lever still, no actual movement at all. That is nice, nice and tight. And finally the shaft going through the bracket. There it is, look at that, like throwing a chopstick down the Dartford Tunnel. And just as a final proof, if I push these two shifters in and hold them tight against the bracket and shift backwards and forwards, look at that, that's lovely. There's about 2 millimeters of play. That's exactly how I want it when I'm riding. But this old nonsense here, there is at least ½ inch of free play there, just rattling about all over the place, and I've got to eliminate that. It's horrible. Now it's obviously just wear and tear, 30,000 miles. Imagine how many times that's been pressed down and lifted up, and all the time that shaft that goes through there is bearing force up and down on the hole it sits in, so something's going to wear. So let's strip it all apart, take it to bits and find out what actual part is worn and how we can rectify it. Lowering. Take forward. Slide it out. Good clean. Right, now this I think is a combination of things. There's a couple of bushings in this hole here, one outside, one inside. There's a gap in between them. When you put a seal pick in, you can feel a little gap, presumably for grease to reside. And there's the next thing. It's bone dry in there, nothing in there whatsoever. And the shaft is bone dry. You saw the grief I had getting those off. So possibly that it's bone dry, there's no grease where there should be, so that leads to a little bit of play. And also there's two O-rings, one inside, one outside. They're both a little bit squished and shredded, and I reckon if this has ever been pressure washed, it's quite likely that the grease has been washed out. But thankfully the shaft itself here, there's no real wear on that at all. That feels as smooth as you like. There's no worn patches that need to be dealt with. The only thing there is this plastic washer, which seems to be a packing spacer that holds the whole thing into the bracket. And watch this. Right, if I put the O-ring back on where it should be, pop that through the bracket, and if I press that hard up against the back so it's pulled right through, there's almost no play at all. Then we put the other O-ring in where it should be, and this is a plastic spacer, thin, about 6 mil, put it on there. And now, with that all installed and squished, pushed hard together that way, absolutely no play, and it rotates nicely, and it will rotate even nicer when I get some grease in there. So I think the task is to simply make a new, thicker spacer that takes up the free play that's allowing this to waggle about. Because at the moment, this little plastic spacer fits on up against the shoulder on the shaft here, doesn't go any further. And when that's held firmly in there, it holds the whole linkage nice and solid. And with the foot shifter fitted on, that should hold that spacer firmly in place. But it doesn't. There's currently about a millimetre gap allowing this to waggle about. So that is the problem. That needs to be thicker. Once it is, with the shifter fitted right up against it, nice and tight, it will hold everything in perfect alignment. And it might be easy to think, just loosen off the shifter and push it in up against it. In theory, yeah, but these grooves dictate exactly where the shifter sits. You can't move it sideways at all. It sits exactly in that groove. You've actually got to pack out that space. And the best way to do it is use a washer to see if my theory works first. Then I can get making. There, that's all it needed. Just packing out. Simple. Now, at the moment, that's still bone dry in there, needs packing out with grease, new O-rings and all the rest of it. But that washer I put in, that's spinning freely. That's how much movement there was. So I can make it a fraction thicker than that, and I think I'll make my spacer from brass rather than squashy plastic and lock it up absolutely solid and make it perfect. Let's do it. Oh, there we are. Absolutely chuffed with that. Perfect. Now, before anyone says, well, it's all right if you've got a lathe. Yes, I know, but I happen to have one, so I just happen to use it. But you don't need a lathe for this job. What about a little stack of copper washers, or stainless steel washers, or brass washers? You can order anything from the internet. So measure up the sizes of what you need, order half a dozen, and whack them in there. Then your sloppy lever will be tight as a gnat's chuff, just like mine. I'll see you next time.